The stars burned cold and distant as Queen Vela stood on the bridge of her dying warship. The Eternal Crown had been the pride of the Morith fleet for 300 years. Now it drifted through space like a wounded animal. Smoke filled the corridors. Warning lights flashed red in every direction. The sound of alarms had become so constant that the crew no longer heard them. Queen Vela was tall and beautiful in the way of her people. Silver scales covered her body like armor made of moonlight. 4 eyes sat upon her face, each one capable of seeing colors that other species could not imagine. A crown of living crystal grew from her head, pulsing with soft blue light that matched her heartbeat. She had ruled the Morith Empire for 300 years, and in all that time, she had never known fear like this. Through the massive viewport, she could see the Drevak fleet. Hundreds of ships hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal insects. They were ugly things, built for war and nothing else. Their hulls were black and covered with spikes. Their weapons glowed with green fire that could melt through any shield. The Drevak were insects themselves, giant creatures with hard shells and too many legs. They did not think like other species. They did not want peace or trade or friendship. They only wanted to consume. Every world they touched became food for their ever-growing hive. Commander Solus approached the queen with slow and careful steps. He was old for a Morith. His scales faded to pale gray. He had served the royal family for 200 years. In all that time, he had never brought good news with such a heavy heart. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice quiet, "the Confederation has refused our request for aid. They say the Drevak threat is not their concern. They have signed a non-aggression pact." Queen Vela did not move. She continued to stare at the enemy fleet. "And the Trade Coalition? They have withdrawn their ambassadors from our space. They fear the Drevak will target them next if they help us." "The Vorm Republic?" "Silent. They do not answer our communications." The queen closed all 4 of her eyes. She had expected this. The galaxy was full of cowards. Every species looked out for themselves. When the Drevak had consumed the outer colonies, no one had cared. When they had destroyed the mining stations, no one had spoken. Now the Morith Empire stood alone against an enemy that would not stop until every living thing was dead. "How long do we have?" she asked. Commander Solus checked his data tablet. "The Drevak Queen Mother has established a breeding hive on the agricultural moon of Mora Prime. 3 million of our citizens are trapped there. At current birthing rates, the Drevak will have enough soldiers to overwhelm our remaining defenses within 40 standard days." 40 days, Queen Vela repeated. "And then the Empire falls." "Yes, Your Majesty." The queen turned away from the viewport. Her crystal crown pulsed faster as her thoughts raced. There had to be another way. There was always another way. She had not ruled for 3 centuries by giving up. "There is one species we have not contacted," she said slowly. Commander Solus tilted his head. "Your Majesty?" "The Terrans. The humans of Earth." The reaction was immediate. Solus took a step backward, his scales rippling with shock. "The humans? Your Majesty, surely you cannot be serious. They are primitives. They only discovered faster than light travel 30 cycles ago. They are barely a presence in galactic affairs. And yet they have a reputation," the Queen said. "Yes, a reputation for violence, for recklessness, for chaos." Solus shook his head. "They fight among themselves constantly. They have no central government, no unified military doctrine. They are emotional and unpredictable. Some say they are barely civilized." Queen Vela smiled, though there was no joy in it. "You say these things as if they are weaknesses. But tell me, Commander, when the Vorn threatened human trade ships, what happened?" Solus hesitated. The humans destroyed the Vorm battle station. With how many ships? 3, Your Majesty. Against a station that had repelled entire fleets. And when the pirates of the Dust Belt took human prisoners, what did the humans do? They tracked the pirates across 4 star systems and eliminated every single one of them. It took them 6 months, but they did not stop until the job was finished. Queen Vela nodded. That is what I need. Not diplomacy. Not careful strategy. I need warriors who will not stop. Warriors who will fight against impossible odds and refuse to surrender. The galaxy calls humans primitive and dangerous. I call them exactly what we need. Commander Solus stood in silence for a long moment. His training told him this was madness. Everything he knew about proper military protocol screamed that this was wrong. But he also knew that the Queen was right. They had no other options. I will send a transmission, he said. Finally, the message traveled across the stars at speeds that would have seemed like magic to humans just a century ago. It bounced from relay station to relay station, crossing thousands of light years in mere hours. When it finally reached Earth, it arrived at a small building in Geneva that most humans did not know existed. The United Nations Extraterrestrial Defense Council had been created 15 years ago, after humanity's first contact with alien life. Its purpose was simple: protect Earth from threats beyond the stars. Director Marcus Webb ran the organization with a steady hand and a careful mind. Marcus was 53 years old. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and lines marked his face from years of difficult decisions. He had been a soldier once long ago. Long ago. Now he sat behind a desk and read reports about things that would have seemed impossible when he was young. When the Morath transmission arrived, he read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. They want soldiers, he said to the officers gathered in his conference room. Elite fighters. They say their empire will fall within 40 days without help. Captain Jake Sullivan sat at the far end of the table. He was the leader of the Omega Response Unit, humanity's most elite special forces team. Jake was 40 years old, with broad shoulders and calm gray eyes. He had served in conflicts on 4 continents and 3 moons. Nothing surprised him anymore. What are they offering in return? Jake asked. Marcus looked at the message again. Full diplomatic alliance. Technology exchange. Star charts to 17 habitable systems. Medical knowledge that could cure diseases we have no treatment for. The room went quiet. Every person there understood what this meant. Humanity had been struggling to find its place in the galaxy. Other species looked down on them, called them primitive and dangerous. This was a chance to prove that humans could be trusted, that they could be heroes. Jake leaned forward. How many soldiers do they need? As many as we can spare. But there's a problem. Marcus pulled up a star map on the main screen. The Morath Empire is 7 weeks away at standard speed. By the time a full fleet arrives, it will be too late. What about the new drive system? Asked Lieutenant Amy Cross. She was young and sharp, with eyes that never missed anything. She was also the best sniper in the history of the armed forces. Marcus nodded slowly. The experimental jump drive. It could get a small ship there in 3 days. But it has never been tested on a mission this long. And we could only send 1 ship. 1 small crew. Jake stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. Then send us. The Omega unit. 6 soldiers. 1 ship. We go in fast, we do what needs to be done, and we come back. You would be facing an army of millions, Marcus said. 6 humans against the Drevok horde. The odds are impossible. Jake smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Director, when has that ever stopped us? Marcus looked around the room. He saw the same determination on every face. These were not people who ran from danger. These were people who ran toward it. "Very well," he said. "Send the reply to the Morth. Tell them help is coming. Tell them Earth is sending its strongest fighters." On the bridge of the Eternal Crown, Queen Vela received a human response. She read the simple message and felt something she had not felt in weeks. Hope. The message said only, "We are coming. Hold the line." The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The USS Defiant sat in the orbital dock above Earth like a sleeping wolf. She was not a pretty ship. Her hull was angular and scarred from battles that the public would never know about. Her engines were oversized for her frame, built for speed rather than comfort. She was a predator designed for one purpose: to get into a fight fast and win it faster. Captain Jake Sullivan stood in the loading bay and watched his team prepare for the mission. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Each one had been tested in ways that would break ordinary people. Each one had looked death in the face and refused to blink. Jake himself had served for 20 years. He had started as a young Navy SEAL with more courage than sense. Time had given him wisdom to match his bravery. He had learned that winning a fight was not about being the strongest. It was about being the smartest. It was about knowing when to attack and when to wait. It was about caring more about your team than about yourself. Lieutenant Amy Cross was loading her rifle with the careful attention of an artist preparing her brush. She was 32 years old, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to see through walls. Amy held the record for the longest confirmed kill in human history. 3 miles. 1 shot. Perfect win calculation. She had made the impossible look easy, and she did it with a smile. Amy had grown up in Montana, learning to hunt with her father before she could read. She had joined the Marines at 18 and never looked back. Some people called her cold because she did not talk much. Those people did not understand. Amy did not need words. Her actions spoke louder than any speech ever could. Sergeant David Cole was checking his explosives kit for the 5th time. He was a big man with thick arms and a face that always seemed to be thinking of something funny. David had grown up in Texas and joined the Army Rangers when he was 19. He had a gift for making things explode in exactly the right way at exactly the right time. David loved his job. He loved the math of demolition, the way you could calculate exactly how much force you needed to bring down a building or open a door. He loved the moment of silence before the boom. Most of all, he loved knowing that his skills kept his team safe. Specialist Tony Race was organizing medical supplies with quiet focus. He was the youngest member of the team at 28, but no one treated him like a kid. Tony had been an Air Force pararescue jumper, trained to drop into the worst places on Earth and bring people home alive. He had saved more lives than he could count. Tony was slim and quick, with gentle hands that could stitch a wound or stop a bleed in seconds. He rarely spoke about his past, but the others knew he had grown up poor in Los Angeles. He had joined the military to escape and found a family instead. Now he would do anything to protect that family. Corporal Lisa Park sat in the corner with 3 laptops open in front of her. She was small and young-looking, with glasses that made her seem like a college student. People often made the mistake of underestimating her. Those people quickly learned their lesson. Lisa was a cyber warfare specialist. She could hack into any system, control any drone, and see through any camera. She had once shut down an enemy base by turning their own security systems against them. She saw the battlefield not as a place of guns and blood, but as a web of data waiting to be controlled. The last member of the team was Master Sergeant Bill Dawson. At 55, he was the oldest by far. His hair was gray and his face was warm like old leather. He had fought in 3 wars before most of the team was born. Some people thought he should retire. Those people did not know Bill. Bill was the heart of the team. He had seen everything and feared nothing. When the young soldiers felt doubt, Bill was there with a steady word. When the mission seemed impossible, Bill reminded them that they had faced impossible before. Jake called the team together in the center of the loading bay. They formed a circle without being asked, a habit built over years of working together. "You all know the mission," Jake said. "The Morath Empire is under attack. 3 million civilians are trapped behind enemy lines. We are going to save them." David raised his hand. "Just to be clear, boss, we are talking about 6 of us against an army of millions, right?" "That is correct. And this army is made of giant alien insects that feel no pain and want to eat everything?" "Also correct." David grinned. "Just wanted to make sure I understood. Sounds like Tuesday." The others laughed. It was the kind of laugh that only soldiers shared. They were not laughing because things were funny. They were laughing because fear had no place here. Fear was for people who had a choice. The Omega unit did not have choices. They had duty. The ship launched 3 hours later. The experimental jump drive hummed with power that made the walls vibrate. Jake stood on the bridge and watched Earth shrink behind them. Blue oceans and white clouds grew, smaller and smaller until the whole planet was just a marble in the darkness. He thought about everything they were leaving behind. Families, friends, the simple joys of a life without war. But he did not feel sad. This was what they were made for. This was why they existed. The jump drive activated with a flash of white light. Space itself seemed to bend around the ship. Colors that had no names washed across the viewport. For a moment, Jake felt like they were everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Then they were through. Stars filled the viewport in unfamiliar patterns. They had crossed half the galaxy in a heartbeat. A holographic figure appeared on the bridge. It was Commander Solus, the Morath officer who had sent the original message. His scales flickered with different colors as he spoke, signs of emotion that Jake could not yet read. "Terran vessel," Solus said. "I am Commander Solus of the Morath Royal Guard. Your arrival is faster than we expected." Jake nodded. "We did not want to keep you waiting. What is the current situation?" Solus looked uncomfortable. "The situation is worse than when we sent the transmission. The Drevak have taken 2 more defense stations. Our fleet is in retreat. The civilians on Mora Prime have less than 30 days before the hive produces enough soldiers to overwhelm their shelters. Then, we have 30 days to solve the problem." Solus studied the human. "Captain," through the hologram. "Captain Sullivan, I must be honest with you. The Morath military does not believe your mission can succeed. Many of my colleagues think requesting human aid was a mistake. They see your species as primitive." Jake did not seem offended. "Commander, I understand. We are new to the galaxy. We have not proven ourselves to your people. But I promise you this. We did not come here to die heroically. We came here to win." "How?" Solus asked. 6 soldiers cannot fight a war." "No," Jake agreed. "But 6 soldiers can change the course of one. We do not need to defeat the entire Drevak horde. We need to cut off the head of the snake. Your reports say the Drevak operate through a hive mind. They follow the commands of their queen mother. What happens if she dies?" Solus was quiet for a moment. The warriors would become confused, disorganized. Without her guidance, they would likely turn on each other. "Then that is our target. The Queen Mother. We go in, we eliminate her, and we give your fleet a chance to save those civilians. The Queen Mother is in the heart of the hive. She is guarded by hundreds of thousands of warriors. No force has ever penetrated a Drevak hive and survived." Jake smiled. "No force has ever been us, Commander. We will arrive at your coordinates in 6 hours. Have your queen ready to meet us. And do not worry about the odds. Humans do their best work when the odds are against them." The hologram flickered off. Amy walked up beside Jake and stood looking out at the stars. "You really think we can do this?" she asked quietly. Jake thought about the question. He thought about all the missions they had survived, all the times they had faced certain death and walked away. He thought about the 3 million innocent people counting on them. "I think we have to," he said. "And that is all that matters." The Defiance flew on through the stars. 6 humans against an empire of monsters. 6 warriors carrying the hope of millions on their shoulders. They did not slow down. They did not turn back. They flew toward the darkness with their eyes wide open, because that is what humans do. The USS Defiance dropped out of hyperspace near the Morris staging ground, and Jake understood immediately why the Empire was losing this war. The space around them was a graveyard of ships. Massive warships that had once been beautiful now drifted in pieces. Escape pods floated between the debris like lost children. The wreckage stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. Amy stood beside him on the bridge. Her face was calm, but her eyes told a different story. "They really got hit hard," she said quietly. "This is what we are here to stop," Jake replied. "This is why we came." A Morith shuttle approached the Defiance, its golden hull reflecting the light of distant stars. The communication system crackled to life. "Terran vessel, you are cleared to dock with the Eternal Crown. Her Majesty Queen Vela will receive you personally." Jake gathered his team in the docking bay. They wore their combat gear, not because they expected a fight, but because they wanted the Morith to see exactly what kind of soldiers they were. Weapons hung from their belts. Armor covered their bodies. They looked like what they were, warriors ready for war. The airlock opened, and the team stepped onto the Morith flagship. The ship was enormous, built on a scale that made humans feel small. The corridors were wide enough for 3 vehicles to drive side by side. The ceilings rose so high that they disappeared into shadows. Everything was made of smooth silver metal that seemed to glow from within. Mars soldiers lined the walkway. They were tall beings, each one standing at least 7 feet. Their silver scales covered bodies that were thin but strong. 4 eyes watched the humans with a mix of curiosity and doubt. They held energy lances that hummed with power, weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Commander Sullis met them at the end of the walkway. In person, he looked older than his hologram had shown. His scales had faded to pale gray, and he moved with the careful steps of someone who had seen too many battles. "Captain Sullivan," he said, "welcome aboard the Eternal Crown. I hope your journey was not too difficult." "We have had worse," Jake said. "Take us to your queen." They walked through the ship for what felt like miles. Jake noticed that the crew watched them with the same expression everywhere they went. It was a look of disbelief, as if the Morith could not understand why 6 small humans thought they could make any difference. The throne room was the largest chamber Jake had ever seen. It could have held a sports stadium with room to spare. Pillars of living crystal rose from the floor to the ceiling, pulsing with soft light. Hundreds of Morith officials stood along the walls, dressed in robes of purple and gold. At the far end of the room, on a throne carved from a single piece of glowing stone, sat Queen Vela. She was magnificent. Even Jake, who had seen many strange things in his life, felt his breath catch. Queen Vela stood 8 feet tall, her silver scales perfect and unmarked. Her crown of living crystal seemed to be part of her body, growing from her head like a natural extension of her beauty. 4 eyes studied the humans as they approached, each one a different shade of purple. The team stopped at the base of the throne. Jake gave a respectful nod. Bowing felt wrong. Humans did not bow. "Your Majesty," he said, "I am Captain Jake Sullivan of the United Nations Extraterrestrial Defense Council. These are my soldiers. We have come to help." Queen Vela looked at each human in turn. Her gaze was heavy with centuries of wisdom and recent weeks of sorrow. "You are smaller than I expected," she said finally. Her voice was like music, soft and strong at the same time. Jake did not smile. "Size is not everything, Your Majesty. We have won many fights against larger enemies." "So I have heard." The queen stood and walked down from her throne. Even standing close, she towered over the humans. "I have studied your species since we sent the message. You are fascinating creatures. You have only existed for a moment in galactic terms, yet you have achieved so much. You have also destroyed so much." "We are not perfect," Jake admitted. "But when we make a promise, we keep it. We promise to help you. We will help you." Queen Vela gestured to a nearby wall. A holographic display came to life, showing the tactical situation. The image made Jake's stomach tighten. Mora Prime was a beautiful moon covered in farms and forests. At least, it had been beautiful. Now, a massive organic structure sat in the center of the main continent. It looked like a tumor growing on the land. Dark veins spread from it in every direction, covering the ground like a disease. "The Drevok Hive," Queen Vela explained. "The Queen Mother landed here 2 months ago. Since then, she has been birthing soldiers at a rate we cannot match. There are now over 200,000 warriors inside that structure. Our estimates suggest she produces 10,000 more every day." "Where are the civilians?" Amy asked. "Here." The image zoomed to show a series of underground bunkers on the far side of the moon. 3 million of our people are hiding in the old mining tunnels. They have food and water for another 20 days. After that, they will have to surrender or starve. David studied the image with a professional eye. "What about a direct assault? Bomb the hive from orbit?" Commander Solis shook his head. "The hive has powerful shields. We have tried orbital strikes. They do no damage. And any ground assault would be suicide. Our soldiers cannot match the Drevok in close combat." "Then we go around them," Lisa said. Everyone turned to look at the small woman with the glasses. She stepped forward and pointed at the hologram. "The hive is designed to defend against large forces. But look at these tunnels here. Old irrigation systems. They run underneath the hive. A small team could use them to reach the center without being detected." Queen Vela shook her head sadly. "We have considered this. The tunnels are too small for Morth soldiers. And even if we could reach the center, the Queen Mother is protected by her elite guards. No Morth has ever survived an encounter with them." Jake looked at his team. They looked back at him. No words were needed. They all understood. "Your Majesty," Jake said, "we are not Morth soldiers. We are small. We are fast. And we are very good at killing things that think they cannot be killed. You would go into the hive yourselves? 6 soldiers against 200,000? We would not be fighting 200,000. We would be avoiding them. Our target is the Queen Mother and nothing else. We get in, we eliminate her, and we get out. Once she is dead, your fleet can move in and save the civilians while the Drevok are confused." The throne room went silent. Every Morth in the chamber stared at the humans with expressions of shock. Some looked angry, as if the humans were insulting them by suggesting such a mad plan. Others looked curious, wondering if these strange creatures really believed what they were saying. Queen Vela studied Jake's face for a long moment. She searched his eyes for doubt or fear. She found neither. "You truly believe you can do this," she said. It was not a question. "I know we can do this," Jake replied. "This is what we do, Your Majesty. This is what we are. We do not fight because we think we will win. We fight because we cannot accept losing." The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. My advisors say this is madness. They say humans are reckless and foolish. But I have seen the look in your eyes, Captain Sullivan. It is the same look I saw in my own soldiers 300 years ago, when we fought for our freedom against empires that thought we were nothing. She turned to Commander Solus. Give them everything they need. The fastest shuttle. The best weapons. Whatever they ask for. Solus looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he simply bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Queen Vela looked at the humans one last time. You carry the hopes of 3 million people, Captain. Do not let them down. Jake nodded. We will bring them home, Your Majesty. Every single one. The team turned and walked toward the door. Behind them, the Morth watched in silence. Some still thought this was a mistake. Some still believed humans were nothing but primitive creatures playing at war. But others saw something different. They saw 6 small figures walking without fear toward certain death. They saw courage that did not care about odds or logic or reason. And for the first time since the war began, they began to hope. The stealth shuttle dropped through the atmosphere of Mora Prime like a falling leaf. An ion storm raged across the sky, filling the air with lightning and static. It was the worst possible weather for flying. It was the perfect weather for sneaking. Jake sat in the cargo hold with his team. They wore special suits that blocked their heat signatures and masked their scent. Every piece of gear had been checked 3 times. Every weapon was loaded and ready. There was no room for mistakes. The pilot was a young Morith named Kira. She was the fastest pilot in the Imperial fleet. And she flew the shuttle with the casual skill of someone born in the cockpit. 2 minutes to landing zone, she announced over the intercom. The storm should cover our approach. The Dravak sensors will not detect us. Jake looked at his team. Their faces were calm. Amy was checking her rifle for the 10th time. David was humming a song under his breath. Tony was reviewing the medical supplies. Lisa was studying the map on her tablet. Bill just sat with his eyes closed, breathing slowly. These were the moments that tested soldiers. The waiting, the knowing, the understanding that in a few minutes everything would change. The shuttle landed in a clearing 5 miles from the hive. The doors opened and the team moved out in silence. Rain poured down through the trees and thunder shook the ground. The air smelled strange, like metal and rotting plants mixed together. Good luck, Kira said through the radio. I will wait here as long as I can. Jake did not answer. Words were useless now. Only action mattered. They moved through the alien jungle like ghosts. The trees here were not like Earth trees. They were tall and thin, with leaves that glowed faintly in the darkness. Strange animals watched them from the shadows, creatures with too many eyes and bodies that did not make sense. Nothing attacked. Perhaps even the wildlife knew that something worse was coming. Lisa sent her drones ahead, tiny machines no bigger than insects. They flew through the rain and fed information back to her tablet. I have eyes on the hive entrance, she whispered. It is 200 meters north. I count 12 guards on the surface. Patrol rotation every 4 minutes. Jake signaled for the team to stop. They gathered around Lisa's tablet, studying the layout. The hive entrance looked like a mouth. A massive opening in a wall of organic material, lined with teeth-like structures that served no purpose except to terrify. The guards were Dravak warriors, each one standing 7 feet tall on 4 powerful legs. Their bodies were covered in black shells that looked like armor. Their heads were nothing but mandibles and sensory organs. They did not have eyes. They did not need them. They could feel vibrations through the ground and smell prey from miles away. The old irrigation tunnel entrance is here. Lisa pointed to a spot on the map. Behind that rock formation. It is only guarded by 2 warriors. 2 is better than 12, David said. I like those odds. They moved in formation. Amy took position on a small hill, her rifle ready. Through her scope, she could see the 2 guards clearly. They stood motionless, their mandibles clicking softly in the rain. Jake gave the signal. Amy's first shot hit the lead warrior in the space between its head and body. The creature dropped without a sound. Before the second warrior could react, a second shot took it through the primary nerve cluster. It fell next to its companion. Clear, Amy reported. The team rushed forward. David placed a small charge on the rock formation and blew it open. Behind it, a tunnel led down into the darkness. Into the belly of the beast, Bill muttered. They entered the tunnel one by one. The walls were made of old metal pipes covered in alien growth. The air was thick and warm, carrying smells that made their stomachs turn. Moisture dripped from the ceiling. Strange sounds echoed from somewhere deeper in the darkness. Lisa's drones flew ahead, mapping the path. The tunnel branches in 300 meters. Left path leads to a dead end. Right path leads toward the hive center. Estimated distance to the Queen Mother, 2 miles. 2 miles through enemy territory. 2 miles through a living nightmare. They moved in silence, stopping every few minutes to let Lisa's drones check for patrols. The deeper they went, the worse things became. The walls changed from old metal to living tissue. The floor became soft under their boots. They were inside the hive now, walking through its body like a disease. The first patrol appeared without warning. 6 Dravak warriors marching through a side tunnel, their mandibles clicking in some kind of communication. Jake raised his hand, and the team froze. The warriors passed within 20 feet of their position. Their sensory organs swept the air. One of them paused, its head turning toward the humans. No one breathed. After an endless moment, the warrior moved on. The patrol disappeared around a corner. That was close, Tony whispered. It is going to get closer, Jake replied. Keep moving. They went deeper. The hive around them pulsed with life. They passed chambers filled with eggs, thousands of them stacked in rows. They passed feeding pits where captured animals were being dissolved by acid. They passed warrior barracks where hundreds of soldiers stood in hibernation, waiting to be awakened. The smell was unbearable. The air was so thick with pheromones that even their filters struggled to keep it out. Lisa's drones began to malfunction, their sensors confused by the chemical fog. I am losing visual, Lisa said. We are going to have to do this the old way. Bill took point. He moved with the instincts of a soldier who had spent a lifetime in dark places. His eyes scanned every shadow. His ears caught every sound. He led them around patrols, through narrow passages, over obstacles that would have stopped anyone else. Finally, they reached the Queen Mother's chamber. It was the largest space Jake had ever seen underground. The ceiling rose 100 feet above them. Walls of living tissue pulsed with bioluminescent light. And in the center of it all sat the Queen Mother. She was enormous, the size of a building. Her body was a bloated mass of chitin and organic tubes. Eggs emerged from her every few seconds, carried away by worker drones to the nursery chambers. Her head was crowned with sensory organs that could detect movement from miles away. Around her stood 100 elite guards. These were not ordinary warriors. They were bigger, faster, stronger. Their shells were thick enough to stop most weapons. Their claws could cut through armor like paper. Charges set, David reported. He had placed explosives at 4 points around the chamber during their approach, hiding them in the organic walls. Jake keyed his radio. Your Majesty, begin civilian evacuation. We are about to make some noise somewhere in orbit. Queen Vela received the message. Transport ships began moving toward the civilian shelters. Jake looked at his team. They looked back at him. There was no fear in their eyes. "Only determination. On my mark," he said. 3, 2, 1. Mark. David triggered the explosives. The first blast the northern entrance, trapping most of the guards on the far side of the chamber. The second blast created chaos, sending warriors stumbling into each other. The third blast hit the support structure above the Queen Mother, dropping tons of debris onto her guards. The Queen Mother screamed. It was not a sound. It was a psychic pulse that hit every mind in the hive. Warriors everywhere went into frenzy, charging blindly toward the source of their queen's pain. In the chaos, the humans moved. Amy's rifle sang. Each shot found its target. Elite guards fell one after another, holes appearing in the gaps between their armor. She fired without emotion, without pause. Without Miss Bill and Jake moved together, their combat knives finding weak points that the Morth had said did not exist. They had studied Drevok anatomy for the entire journey. They knew exactly where to cut. Tony stayed close, ready with medical supplies. When a claw caught Bill across the shoulder, Tony was there in seconds. Sealing the wound and keeping the old soldier in the fight, Lisa controlled the last of her drones, using them to blind and confuse the warriors. David moved through the chaos, planting the final charge. The Queen Mother tried to call her guards, but they could not reach her. The explosions had sealed the chamber. The only warriors inside were dying under human weapons. David reached the base of the Queen Mother's egg sac. He armed the final explosive and looked up at the massive creature. She looked down at him with sensory organs that had never known defeat. "Nothing personal," David said. "Actually, that is a lie. It is very personal." Everyone out. Another of the team sprinted for the exit tunnel. Behind them, the Queen Mother screamed again, trying to stop them with her psychic power. But humans were not connected to the hive mind. Her screams meant nothing to the explosion was unlike anything the hive had ever experienced. Fire erupted from the Queen Mother's chamber. The shock wave traveled through the entire structure, cracking walls and collapsing tunnels. The team emerged from the tunnel entrance just as the hive began to collapse behind them. They ran through the rain, not looking back, not slowing down behind them. 200,000 Drevak warriors suddenly lost their connection to their queen. They stumbled. They collided. They turned on each other. Without the Queen Mother's guidance, they were nothing but animals acting on instinct. The shuttle appeared through the rain. Kira had moved closer, breaking every rule of stealth to pick them up. "Get in," she shouted. The team piled into the cargo hold. Tony was already working on Bill's shoulder. David was laughing like a madman. Amy was counting her remaining ammunition. Queen Vela stood on the bridge of the Eternal Crown and watched the impossible become real. On the main viewport, Mora Prime burned. A pillar of fire rose from the surface where the Drevak hive had stood for months. Smoke climbed into the atmosphere, visible even from orbit. The Queen Mother was dead. Around her, officers shouted reports that she could barely hear. The words blurred together into noise. Good noise. Beautiful noise. The hive is collapsing. Drevak warriors are attacking each other. Transport ships report successful landing at civilian shelters. Evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule. Commander Solus stood beside his queen, his scales shifting through colors of shock and wonder. In 300 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. 6 soldiers. 6 tiny humans had done what entire fleets could not. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They actually did it." Queen Vela did not respond. She was watching the civilian transport ships lift off from the surface. One after another, they rose through the clouds of smoke and headed toward safety. Each ship carried thousands of her people, families, children, lives that would have been lost forever. 3 million souls. Saved by 6 warriors from a planet the galaxy called Primitive. The shuttle carrying the human team docked with the Eternal Crown an hour later. Queen Vela walked to the docking bay herself, ignoring the protests of her guards. She needed to see them. She needed to look into their eyes and understand what kind of creatures could do what they had done. The airlock opened, and the humans walked out. They were a mess. Their armor was torn and stained with fluids that did not come from human bodies. Tony had bandages wrapped around his shoulder where a claw had cut deep. David's arms were covered in burns from his own explosives. Lisa's left eye was swollen shut from a blow she had taken during the escape. Bill walked with a limp, but he walked. They were wounded. They were exhausted. They were magnificent. The Mara soldiers in the docking bay fell silent. Some had expected the humans to fail. Some had laughed at the idea of 6 primitives making any difference. No one was laughing now. Jake led his team to stand before the Queen. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He met her 4 eyes with his 2 and nodded with respect between equals. "Your Majesty," he said. "Mission complete. The Queen Mother is dead. The hive is destroyed. Your fleet should have no trouble with the remaining Dravak forces." Queen Vela looked at each human in turn. She saw the exhaustion in their faces. She saw the pain they were hiding. But she also saw something else. She saw pride. Not the pride of arrogance, but the pride of duty fulfilled. Slowly, the Queen did something she had not done in 300 years of rule. She bowed. The entire docking bay went silent. Morath guards looked at each other in shock. Commander Solus nearly dropped his data tablet. A queen of the Morath Empire did not bow. Not to anyone. Not ever. Queen Vela held the bow for a long moment before rising. When she spoke, her voice carried across the bay for everyone to hear. "You have saved my people. Not with overwhelming force. Not with superior numbers. You saved them with courage that I have not seen in centuries. The Morath Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Jake shook his head. "Your Majesty, we did not come here for payment. We came because you asked for help. On Earth, we have a saying, you do not have to be the biggest to be the bravest." Amy stepped forward, her rifle still hanging at her side. "We have another saying too. Mess with one human, you mess with all of us. Your people are our friends now. Anyone who threatens you threatens us." The Queen smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but it was genuine. "I believe I am beginning to understand why the galaxy fears your species." David laughed. "Fear is a strong word. We prefer healthy respect." The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Communication networks lit up with the story of what had happened at Mora Prime. 6 humans had walked into a hive of 200,000 enemy warriors. 6 humans had killed the Queen Mother. 6 humans had changed the course of a war. Some species did not believe it at first. The Vorn insisted it was propaganda. The Trade Coalition demanded proof. The Confederation sent diplomats to investigate. They all received the same evidence. Sensor recordings. Witness testimonies. The undeniable fact that 3 million Morath civilians were alive because of 6 warriors from Earth. The Drevok horde, for the first time in galactic memory, retreated. Without the Queen Mother on Mora Prime, their invasion lost its focus. Warriors that had been unstoppable became confused and disorganized. The Morath fleet pushed them back sector by sector. Within 2 weeks, the war was effectively over. The Drevok would be a threat again someday. Queens did not die easily, and there were others waiting to take power. But for now, the galaxy was safe. Reporters from a dozen species requested interviews with the human team. Jake refused most of them. He was not interested in fame. None of them were. They were soldiers, not celebrities. But Queen Vela convinced him to speak to one reporter. A journalist from the Galactic News Network who would broadcast to every inhabited world. What makes humans so effective? The reporter asked. It was a question everyone wanted answered. Jake thought about it for a long time before responding. We are not the strongest species, he said. We are not the fastest or the smartest. We do not have the best technology or the biggest ships. But we have something that many species seem to have lost. What is that? Heart. We fight not because we want to conquer. We fight because we cannot stand by while innocent people suffer. Every human soldier knows that someday it might be our families who need saving. So we save others. We protect strangers. We run toward the fire instead of away from it. The reporter was quiet for a moment. Even when the odds are impossible? Jake smiled. Especially then. The impossible is just something that has not been done yet. Queen Vela gave her own statement to the press. It was shorter, but it spread even farther. I have ruled for 300 years, she said. I have seen species rise and fall. I have witnessed wars that destroyed entire civilizations. I thought I understood the galaxy. I was wrong. She paused, her crystal crown pulsing with emotion. Humans are not what we thought they were. They are not primitives. They are not dangerous animals. They are the most terrifying thing in the universe. People who will burn worlds to protect strangers, simply because it is the right thing to do. The USS Defiance returned to Earth 2 weeks later. The ship was damaged, its hull scarred from the mission. The crew was exhausted, ready for rest they had earned many times over. A crowd waited at the spaceport. Thousands of people had come to welcome them home. Flags waved. Children cheered. Politicians waited with medals and speeches. Jake stood at the viewport and watched the celebration below. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. He felt the weight of everything they had done and everything they still had to do. Amy walked up beside him. You okay, boss? Just thinking. About what? About the next one. The next call for help. The next impossible mission. Jake turned to look at her. It is going to come, you know. Now that the galaxy knows what we can do, they will call on us again. Amy nodded slowly. Then we will answer again. That is what we do. Bill joined them, limping slightly but refusing to show weakness. You know what I have learned in 50 years of fighting? The war never really ends. There is always someone who needs help. Always someone trying to hurt innocent people. The best we can do is be ready when the call comes. Tony and Lisa and David gathered around. The team stood together, looking down at the world they had protected. So what happens now? David asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Now we rest. We heal. We train. And when the next impossible mission comes, we will be ready. He looked at each of his soldiers, the family he had built through fire and blood. Because somewhere out there, someone needs humanity. And humanity will answer. The ship descended toward home. The crowd cheered. The flags waved. But Jake was already thinking about the stars. About the distant worlds where people suffered. About the calls for help that would come tomorrow or next, week or next year. Humanity was no longer just a small species on a small planet. They were defenders, protectors, heroes in a galaxy that had forgotten what heroism meant. The universe was vast and full of dangers. But as long as humans drew breath, hope would never die. Because that is what humans do. They answered the call. Always.